Hi, our guest today is Glenn Weich, who's a candidate for the school committee in the April 3rd Milford Town election. Welcome, Glenn.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
So our usual first question is, why are you running?
Right.
Well, my mentor always says this phrase, democracy is not a spectator sport. And after getting involved with other areas in politics, working on trying to get money out of politics, working on trying to get an increase in the minimum wage, I realized after a number of years I hadn't really done anything inside the town. And so last year I became a town meeting member, and I also joined a group called the MAC, Milford Area Humanitarian Coalition, and they do some great work with the summer lunch program.
Very familiar with it.
Yes. And so I felt that this year I would try to take it to the next level and try to do more for the town.
Okay, and why schools in particular?
Schools are one of the most important institutions that we have in town, and it's an area where we can have a lot of impact. I care a lot about education, and so I felt it was a natural choice for me to get involved there.
Do you have kids in the system right now?
I do not, but you know, given that education is such an important part of our culture, and also our school system is a very important part of our town, I felt that it's a natural choice for me anyway.
Okay.
What kind of experience do you bring to schools specifically? Is your background in education, or?
It is not. My background is mostly in technology. Okay. I was a software developer for 18 years, and now I'm an IT consultant. I run my own small business. And so I bring a different viewpoint than a lot of other candidates might have. I see that we're taking on more technology in the school system, and so I see that as a key area where I can help. As they're rolling things out, I've had experience with successful rollouts of technology and some unsuccessful rollouts of technology.
Yeah, I believe by next September there'll be a Chromebook in everywhere from grade 3 up.
I believe that's true, yes. And so, so I can always offer advice on things to watch out for, potential pitfalls. I'm also very interested in the programming aspects of technology. I understand that there's going to be more programming languages, programming curriculum. And programming is very useful even if you don't want to become a software developer. It teaches you logic and problem solving, how to break problems down to their smallest parts, and how to attack problems in a logical way. And so I feel that's something that I'm interested in advocating for in the school system.
Well, both Al and I go back to the days of mainframe, so I remember charting out on whiteboards the all the little shapes for databases and disk drives and, and flow and logic. I have a son as a programmer, and boy, do you learn logic and discipline with that.
I programmed in machine code, pushing and popping, so.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what we go back to. I go back to Octal.
I've done some of that as well. I've done COBOL and Fortran when I first got out of college, and then
COBOL, Fortran, Unix, Pascal.
Yeah.
Today there's C++ and Python.
Yeah, C and C++ for me mostly.
Yeah, so it just keeps going there, and it's, I think, having an understanding of technology is a fundamental for anybody in today's society.
Are there any other issues that you'd like to, bring to the table?
So one issue I see as a key issue for the town is the school choice numbers. We have a disparity between the number of kids who are coming from outside school systems into our school system versus ones who are leaving our town to go to other
Right.
school systems. And until recently, the numbers had been going up.
For going out or coming in?
For going
Going out.
Uh-huh.
And they're
And
just
so-
starting to turn.
Right, and so we've been spending more money to educate our kids in other school systems, which is not a good situation. And upon looking at the various programs that we offer and the great benefits that we have here in Milford, partly because of our size, we're able to offer certain programs that maybe some other school systems cannot. That I think it's at least partly an education effort to demonstrate to parents the various programs that we do have. And the school committee has taken upon itself to create a marketing subcommittee. And so I feel like that is something I can provide some help on.
You'd like to get on that committee.
I would, the subcommittee, yes.
Do you think it's more a perception that causes people to go, or a reality that there's something Milford doesn't have?
That causes them to move to another school district?
I think it's a variety of issues. I mean, there's always relationships where a relative is working in another school system and they transfer out just to be, near
Right.
the relative, things like that. Or they came from another town and they're just more comfortable in that school system. But I do think there is a bit of a perception problem, but partly because of our MCAS scores. And I think in general, that issue is being attacked separately. And the other educational effort to educate people about the programs would bring people back into the fold. So
Or
that's what
even
I'm
attract
hoping.
people from other schools?
And attract people from other school systems, absolutely.
So there's a marketing subcommittee?
Yes.
Ah,
They've
okay.
been in business for about a year now.
And so I think part of the effort is to create concise information that people can consume. Parents are busier than ever right now.
I think they were tackling certain grades, like the middle school going to the high school, or the younger grades,
Right.
to show what's there.
Where is it happening most? Is it happening from the 8th to 9th grade transition, or is it happening in mid, the 6th or 7th area?
Honestly, I haven't seen all the data, so
Okay.
I couldn't tell you.
From what I remember, it was down towards the elementary level before middle school,
Really?
and then it was getting out of middle school to high school level.
Yeah,
people
the
would leave.
transition from 8th to
Well,
9th.
you also have some people go to Valley Tech as a matter of course,
Mm-hmm.
even though they're very rigorous. But I mean, there are other schools in the area. I know I live in the neighboring Mendon-Upton district, and we have 2 or 3 kids every year go to Norfolk Aggie.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to duplicate that anywhere. They're just going.
Right. And then there are private schools, St. John's and other places that
Right.
kids go to, that's private schools. Are there any other issues that you want to be involved in or engage? Anything you bring to the table that concerns you?
Well, I would like to see more civics taught in schools.
Well, I can agree with that.
I think it's very important that kids learn to participate in democracy, voting, but also, joining groups, finding like-minded people to change things when you see a problem, getting active in any way they feel is appropriate.
Yeah, not that I'm taking a stand either way, but if you look at what the kids in the Florida town with the most recent shooting was, those high school kids are basically demanding to meet with the governor and
Absolutely.
legislators, which you don't usually see these days, the kids getting that active. But I think one good side of that, though, is, as you know, there is a candidates forum only for the high school students, juniors and seniors who are 18 or close to 18, where they get to ask questions. And it's designed, I understand, to get the 18-year-olds to register to vote.
Yes.
Get them engaged.
So that is going on in the high school in, I believe, March.
But I do believe that a government course, or a civics course. When I was in school, it was called government, not civics, but it was a course that was specifically wrapped around how the United States government worked.
Sure.
And I have to tell you, I teach the citizenship in the community and citizenship in the nation merit badges to Boy Scouts, both of which are required to be an Eagle Scout. And I understand if the kids don't know it, but what amazes me is how few of the parents know how their local or state or national government work at all.
Yeah,
You know,
just-
if you ask a question, whose budget is it, or whose tax cut is it, and they go, oh, it was Obama's budget. Obama doesn't do anything, the Congress votes budget.
Right.
And the parents say, that's not right. I go, yeah, it is. And, you know, that's today's adults, so I'm 100% in favor of anybody who can teach civics in a way that people get it, especially how their local government works.
Well, I mean, it's even the case in town government. A lot of people think that the town manager or the board of selectmen set the budget. They don't understand that the governing body or the town meeting sets the budget.
Right, I can't tell you how many people complain about their tax bill, and I say, in Milford, I go, are you a town meeting member? No. Have you talked to your town meeting member? No. Are you aware that the vote they take at the annual town meeting in May, that usually sails through with no discussion, is the largest single factor other than state aid affecting your tax rate? No.
That's very true. And I've had a reason to talk to a couple of my representatives in town meeting before I became a town meeting member myself. And they were kind of shocked that I had even called because no one had called about an issue before.
Right. Well, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the budget because you have a really good finance committee in the town of Milford that goes through this thing with a fine-tooth comb.
Right.
So I'm not trying to say it's padded or anything because I don't believe it is sitting
Right.
through those meetings. But I'm just shocked at how many people don't connect the two.
Don't understand.
And I wasn't talking about the budget necessarily, but just in general, that a lot of people don't talk to the representatives on town meeting.
Right.
In fact, no one does, at least not as a course of action generally.
Right. I mean, they probably don't even know what they vote on.
Right.
They don't, well, a lot of them don't understand that the most basic form of government is a town meeting. I mean, it's,
And Milford, being a larger town, is one step up and has the representative town meeting.
Right.
Which most larger cities, not cities, larger towns have.
right.
You know, before you go to the city government with the city council and mayor that replaces that open forum.
Right.
And,
It's an interesting thing. And the other one that should be in schools, in my opinion, is economics. People don't understand the process of, kids don't understand loans and banking and, how, they just don't understand that stuff. And there are two things if you're going to be a contributing citizen. If you're going to be a citizen, you need to understand the town government, you need to understand economics.
Yes.
When I was in school, you had to take those two courses. They were mandatory. Times have changed. Anything else that you...
Yeah, so another thing that I'd like to see more of is possibly some earlier language courses for kids. One thing that we're running into now a lot in larger multinational corporations is that teams are comprised of lots of units that are all over the world. You may have part of your department that's from China and from Spain and from somewhere else, and you're all expected to Skype or some other meeting platform to have your daily meetings.
I'll give you a great example of that. Is my son is, again, a software network engineer. He was in charge of a worldwide rollout of a new tool in his company, and that included Japan, and coincidentally, he enrolled himself in Japanese courses just to learn more about it because he always wanted to go there. When the people in Japan found out he was taking Japanese, they invited him to oversee the rollout in Japan from Japan and really valued the fact that he took an effort to learn their language.
Right, and so...
It's not a multicultural world, it is a multinational business world today.
Absolutely.
And the ability to speak any foreign language is an asset to people.
I believe that strongly.
Yeah, I think Chinese and Japanese are critical. Russians also critical.
Spanish, French, Russian, German, whatever.
Pick one, yep.
You know, it is true that English is one of the world standard languages, but it's also true that people in countries you deal with would prefer you speak their language,
Right.
or make an effort to.
Certainly.
Anybody that goes to France tells you in Paris they'll scoff at you and say, we speak English, but if you go out in the countryside, you're on your own if you don't speak it. So that's when I agree. So you want to bring it into what, the elementary levels?
Starting then, I understand that we had a foreign language in elementary school program at one point, and I'd like to see something similar to that.
Well, how would you, it probably got cut due to budget considerations.
I think probably so.
So, how do you feel about the current level of school funding? Do you think it's okay to increase every year by the 4 to 5% it increases? Or do you want to see it go higher to fund more things?
So, I mean, at the very least, we should be doing the 4 to 5% while the economy is still good. And creating these other programs that add extra benefits for our students. Because there will be a day when we're going to have a recession again. We're 10 years from our last recession now, and capitalism generally, you get a recession every 7 to 8 years, and that's when we'll be called upon to do some belt tightening. So while we can, while the economy is still decent, while people are still employed, now is the time to really spend the money that we have, invest it in the best way possible, and get the most bang for the buck that we can while we can. Because there will be a call later on where we may have to skimp a little bit, where we may not have a full 4% or 5% increase, maybe not even a 2% increase because of market circumstances. So we have to keep that in the back of our minds. And to some degree, we are, I think, if you look at some of the increases that we had 10 years ago, they were very small because of the recession.
Right.
And so I think in some areas we're probably still playing catch up from that recession.
But the town has at least invested in facilities.
Yes.
Every school has been redone with the exception of the high school. And I understand that's up for debate right now, but at least...
That question's on the table now.
Right. To some people it is.
Yeah.
To some people
it's not an
it's a
option.
non-starter.
It's a non-starter, right.
If you look at the cost of finding land and building a brand new one, which some people are advocating, you're in the hundreds of millions, and I don't think the town's going to swallow that.
No.
I just don't. However, the way that building is constructed makes it very hard to reconstruct.
That's correct.
So you have to figure out a way to handle both schools of thought in one.
Which will be a challenge.
At least Woodland stayed, the old Woodland stayed open while they built the new Woodland. Then that was done, they tore down the old one. Unfortunately, though, the middle school east is being sold, so that's no longer a stopgap. In my view, you could have, closed one wing of the high school, put the students in the Middle East building, renovated that wing, then shift and do the other wing, but that's no longer a possibility.
That's not an option.
Right.
And by the time you get to a discussion of the high school, the Middle East will be either torn down or renovated. So.
Renovated, right.
But,
so that's a challenge. That is a challenge.
But my point was, at least while things were slow, the town did go ahead and invest money in the facilities.
Yes, and it's reduced some of the maintenance costs that we might have had we not done that. So it frees up the money for other things that we could possibly do.
Beautiful buildings, I might add.
Yes.
I mean, if you remember what Stacy looked like before the renovation, and especially the new Woodland is outstanding. Well, we've got a couple of minutes left, Glenn. So what do you want people to know? There are 7 people running.
Yes.
What makes you different than them so that people would want to elect you over at least 4 of the other people?
There you go. That's a good answer.
Well, we have 3 openings, so
Right.
3 people are getting in, so you need
Yes.
to beat out 4 people to get in.
And so I would say my technology experience in particular, my focus on that to help roll out the new technologies for students and for teachers, to assist in any way I can to make that transition smooth. And also my focus on what I think is probably the biggest issue that we have right now, which is the school choice issue. And so those are the things I really want to focus on. Those are the things I think are the most important going forward for the school system. Okay. And were I elected, those are the things I would like to do for the town.
Have you talked to any people on the school choice marketing subcommittee?
I have not. I've talked to Joe Moraes, though.
Okay.
And so we've talked about some of the marketing materials that they've been developing, and so I have some input on that. And it does seem like they're ready to start putting things on the website, which would be super handy. Okay. And I have some other suggestions that I'd like to make as far as focusing on specific programs or quick things that you can use to market to parents who don't have a lot of time to read things. Okay.
Now, I understand from the last Finance Committee meeting that they are hoping to wrap up the next year's fiscal year school budget prior to the election, so that when the three of newcomers get on board, they don't have to reinvent the wheel. That means, if that happens, that means basically you would have 6 or 7 months before another budget cycle comes around where you would start to get involved in it. Are you okay with that? You would concentrate your efforts maybe on the marketing and wait till the budget cycle comes up again?
Yeah, I mean, the situation is what it is. If there's an opportunity to have some input, I'd be happy to have some input, but just from what I've seen so far, I'm pretty comfortable as to where things stand. So I think marketing right now would be my primary focus.
Okay. Melanie?
No, I'm just thinking, what kind of marketing things would you like to see changed? The way if I was a parent and asking, gee, I'm trying to decide whether to send my kid to the high school here or go to Blackstone Valley or Nipmuc or Hopedale or whatever. Why should my child come to stay in the...
Again, I would like to see more utilization of the website, and I know they're starting to work on this, but I would like to have sections on the website that make it easy to browse. If someone wants to learn about Woodland School, they can see a high level of a view of what the programs are at Woodland School. And then if they want to do a deep dive on one of the individual programs, you might have a single page document on what those programs are about, how they work, what grades are affected, that kind of thing, so that people can look for the exact things they're looking for in the school system.
I know some websites are notoriously hard to find things on. Not saying the schools is, but I recently was looking at a facet of Milford Town government. It took me quite a while to find where something was. It was not where I intuitively thought it. Something about the town election. Yes. And it was not where I thought it would be under the town clerk who does elections. I had a very hard time finding it.
Yeah, and websites can be that way. That's one of the things we're doing on ours. We're rewriting our whole website. It's 12 years old. It's time to update it and modify it and make it easier for people to get through it and see things. Well, being that school committee members charge legally, what they're charged with by statute is policy, budget, hiring and firing the superintendent. Those are the three things a school committee member has, and the superintendent and special ed director and a treasurer. But those are the three things. So policy is really the issue that school committee members really are supposed to get into. Are there any policies that in the district that you'd like to see changed or added or modified?
One thing I would like to see is maybe slightly later start times for school.
Really?
Yeah, I think that if we had the school system start slightly later, but then we extended the school day a little longer, it would help in keeping the kids focused. Sometimes it's a little too early for some kids. They have trouble adjusting to early start times.
What if they just go to bed earlier at night? Now, what if parents actually said, you have a 10 o'clock bedtime, no video games, no cell phones, no computers?
In an ideal world, that would be wonderful. The other thing
I'm sorry,
is,
I shouldn't laugh.
The other thing is that given that both parents in the household are mostly working, if we extended the school day a bit longer, that would eat up some of the time where kids are unsupervised.
But wouldn't you need every other school to adopt that schedule so that athletics aren't, Milford's here and everybody else is here.
It's definitely something we'd have to discuss in a broader sense.
Interesting. That's a valid question.
I have to tell you, when my children were all in their 20s, when they were going into high school, the high school had a seminar for parents and told us all, your kids are going to be tired in the morning and they need more sleep, yada, yada, yada. I don't know where that came from. I had no problem going to bed at a certain time every night. I don't want to sound like an old fogey, but I had no problem going to bed every night. I had no problem getting up and getting to school. I had no problem working. I had no problem being on a sports team and not being late. So
And
I
you-
don't know what happened in a 20-year period to make everybody be sleepy.
You had
I
no
honestly
problems.
don't.
You had no problems.
No.
No. Well, I can
So
say that.
I don't get it.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm told it exists. I'm told all the kids believe in it. I know they're all drinking coffee now in high school. I still don't get what happened in society that caused that. I really don't.
Well, I think philosophically things have changed over the years since you went to school. Back when you went to school, everybody wrote on a slate tablet.
Well, not actually true, but that's why I say I'm not trying to sound like an old fuddy-duddy. I watch my kids do it. I know I have, my youngest is still in college and deliberately picks courses that don't start before 11 a.m.
Well, I can appreciate that.
because she's sleeping, and I just look at this and go, whatever. But I have a hard time culturally understanding how society morphed to that, but good luck to you if you can do it.
If you can get
Boston
that
just
done.
withdrew it after getting an outcry from parents.
Right.
I think it's valid if what all the psychologists tell you is true, and I'll accept that the kids need extra sleep, but implementing it, I think, is a lot harder than people realize.
I think it's worth a discussion.
Agreed.
Yeah, it can also save, believe it or not, save on bus.
And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of parents looking at this going, boy, he doesn't have a clue.